at night in Loma Linda, in the auditorium at Loma Linda. And the person who spoke and some of the things that were spoken, and how Adventism has been responding, reacting, whatever to what was spoken and what was outed on that evening at Loma Linda. Just before I left to take my flight to the Northwest, I picked up Volume 9 of Testimonies. Just as a reminder, I turn to some of the passages that I have read many times. This was written 100 years ago. We're living in the time of the end. The fast fulfilling signs of the times declare that the coming of Christ is near at hand. The days in which we live are solemn and this was written 100 years ago. The days in which we live are solemn and important. Plagues and judgments are already falling upon the despisers of the grace of God. The calamities by land and sea, the unsettled state of society, the alarms of war are portentous. They forecast approaching events of the greatest magnitude. The agencies of evil are combining their forces and consolidating, strengthening for the last great crisis. Great changes are soon to take place in our world, and the final movements will be rapid ones. The condition of things in the world shows that troublous times are right upon us. Daily papers are full of indications of a terrible conflict in the near future. There are many, not even among educators and statesmen, those are politicians. There are not many, even among educators and statesmen, who comprehend the causes that underlie the present state of society. Those who hold the reins of government are not able to solve the problem of moral corruption, poverty, pauperism, and increasing crime. They're struggling in vain to place business operations on a more secure basis. Struggling in vain. Who reads the warnings given by the fast fulfilling signs of the times? What impression is made upon worldlings? What change is seen in their attitude? No more than was seen in the attitude of the inhabitants of the Noachian world. Absorbed in worldly business and pleasure, the antediluvians knew not. Jesus said, till the flood came and took them all away. They had heaven-sent warnings, but refused to listen. Today the world, utterly regardless of the warning voice of God, is hurrying on to eternal ruin. And then I couldn't miss this one because I'm a Daniel and Revelation nut. The world is stirred with the spirit of war. The prophecy of the 11th chapter of Daniel has nearly reached its complete fulfillment. Soon the scenes of trouble spoken of in the prophecies will take place. That's just a few statements from Volume 9 of Testimonies. Written 100 years ago. She thought it was all taking place in her day. She thought. I told you Daniel 8. Well, we're going to get to Daniel 8 after we get to Daniel 12 and one verse. And that one verse is going to take us back to Daniel 8. So let's get the introduction. I said to you that the first vision given to Daniel, and I could say the first dream given to King Nebuchadnezzar, the first vision given to Daniel is comprehensive. Comprehensive. It's all inclusive. It needs to be enlarged in places, expanded upon in places, but it's comprehensive. So if you're going to open a vision, if you're going to write a story, you have an introduction, and then you've got to have a conclusion. Daniel 12 is the last chapter. And verse 11 of Daniel chapter 12 is only 2 verses from the last verse in the book. So here's the vision, comprehensive. And here's the summation. Here's the summary. This is it. Where did I go? Here I am. Who is speaking? Michael. Verse 1, chapter 12. At that time shall Michael stand up. And there will be a time of trouble such as never was since there was nation. No, not to the same time. Who quotes himself in the New Testament. Jesus quotes these very words from Daniel 12:1 and 2. This is Michael speaking. This is Jesus before he was Jesus speaking. He is summing up everything that Daniel was shown and said, I don't get it. I don't understand it. About verse 8 and 9 and 10 of chapter 12, the angel says to Daniel, Go thy way, Daniel, for the words are closed up and sealed, even till the time of the end. Meanwhile, the wicked shall do wickedly, and none of the wicked shall comprehend, understand. But the wise will understand. So let's get the summation. From the time, that's an express punctiliar time. It has the little word "the" in front of it. It's specific. I submit to you, it's a moed time. From the time that the daily sacrifice supplied shall be taken away, and the abomination that makes or maketh desolate set up, there shall be 1,290 days. 1,290 days. Now that really strikes me, because for thousands of years people have been asking God, how long, how long, how long, how long? And he has said, I'm not going to tell you. But he was willing to tell Daniel, even though Daniel said, I heard, but I don't understand. I didn't understand, and I don't understand. And the angel said to him, Go thy way, Daniel, for the words are closed up. Go sleep, and you'll receive your reward at the end of the days. So let's try to visualize this. There is a moment, the time, there is a moment in prophetic time to come when the daily, whatever that is going to be taken away, whatever that means. 1,290 days later, we're going to see, hear, somehow understand what the abomination of desolation is all about. So I have the verse, including the words that are added by the translators, and we can recognize those words are added because they are italicized. So what we want to do is take the same verse of Scripture and let's take the italicized supplied in good faith by the translators out. And let's see how it reads. And from the time, the daily, shall be taken away, and the abomination that makes desolate set up 1,290 days. Now remember, this is a summation. Here's a passage, Isaiah 14, we're all very familiar with. How art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning, cut down to the ground, which didst weaken the nations, because you said in your heart, I will ascend into heaven, I will exalt my throne above the stars of God. I will sit on the mount of the congregation in the sides of the north. You know this verse, you know these verses. Paul repeats them over there in Thessalonians, and he says, you need to understand that day, the great day of the Lord, is not going to come except there's an apostasia first. There's a falling away first, and the man of sin is revealed, and he is going to sit where? In the temple of God, showing himself that he is God. That's Paul's commentary on Isaiah, right here. The word abomination is sometimes translated pollute. He will pollute the sanctuary of strength, is one way it's written in the book of Daniel and rendered. He will defile God's place with the unclean presence of evil. Jesus is quoting these verses over in the New Testament, and he says, when you therefore shall see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet, whoso readeth, let him do what? Understand. Before he said, run. He said, understand what's going on. Then he said, run for it. Don't go and pack your bags. Get out of town. Let's go on here. We're trying to get some handle on whatever this polluting power in God's place is all about. I submit to you that whatever is meant and whatever is comprehended in this abomination that Jesus said, whoever reads this, let them understand. When the understanding comes, not simply what the abomination that makes desolate is, but what it means prophetically, I submit to you it's the straw that breaks the devil's back. Why does God do something? Why does God? No, let the wheat and the tares grow together until. Here's the until. Right here. Right here. Whatever this abomination making desolate will turn out to be, it's where God says, well, actually what it says is, at that time shall Michael stand up. Who is Michael? He's the alter ego of Jesus. He was Michael before he was Jesus. And when the judgment sits and is completed, he becomes Michael again. What's the difference between Jesus and Michael? Come on. This is Jesus. This is Michael. You want to fight? Let's fight. You want to make war? I'm here. From the time the daily sacrifice shall be taken away, and the abomination that makes desolate set up, there shall be, italicized, 1,290 days. So we got the type, the print larger. Let's do some things. From the time, italicized, that the daily, italicized, sacrifice, taken away, and the abomination making desolate set up, there shall be, italicized. So let's do it again. We're going to take the supplied words out. And from the time the daily shall be taken away, and the abomination that makes desolate set up, maketh desolate, 1,290 days. Let's see where we can go with all of this. Tony, please highlight the words that carry some weight, that have some significance in this, that carry the force of what the verse is all about. Well, you should have just made it all yellow, he said. But let's talk about the time again. It's a specific time. It's not just any time. I think it's one of those appointed times that Gabriel talked to Daniel about in chapter 8. The daily. See, this word daily is mentioned only 5 times in the book of Daniel. Only 5 times. Now, I took Ellen White at her word. She says the things shown to Daniel and sealed were afterward revealed to John on the Isle of Patmos and are open to our investigation. I wrestle with that for well nigh 40 years plus. I have no problem finding the 5 instances in the book of Daniel where the expression the daily, the daily, the daily, the daily, whatever it is, I have no trouble finding it in Daniel, but I can't find it in Revelation. And I'm going there for further illumination. The visions given to Daniel and seal were afterward revealed to John on the Isle of Patmos. I'm looking for the daily. And I'm really struggling and wrestling with this because it's the summation, Michael, Christ says. This is it. This is how you know when the time has come. You start with the time the daily is taken away. So what is important in this verse? Well, the time, the daily, taken away, abomination, desolate, 1290 days. And those are the important features of this verse. So let's look again. The daily, whatever it is going to be taken away, whatever that means. And the abomination of desolation, some verses read, or that maketh desolate, is set up. So I want to draw the little umbrella again and tell you that a stretch suggests the passage of time. Otherwise, that bar would be on top of this one. And I meet folk all the time who want to tell me this and this belong together. Well, I believe they do, with a stretch between. I believe they do, because it says from the time that the daily is taken away, then the abomination set up, 1290 days. 1,290 days. I believe God is a just God. And I believe that God does not double speak. I mean, he does, but he doesn't. In other words, I believe if you're going to talk about a serious matter like the end of the world, 1,290 days is 1,290 days. I don't need to be guessing going in. Unfortunately, I find myself guessing here and guessing there, but I'm not guessing here. Now, the pioneers did. They wanted to work everything out as a day for a year, and so 1,290 years. Well, who lives long enough to figure that one out? The third generation will give it up. So what's the problem? Are you aware of simple biblical principles of interpretation? So let's look at one. Are you familiar with the expression first mention or first use as an interpretive principle? I said to you a moment ago that the word or the expression daily appears 5 times in the book of Daniel. The first use or first mention of that expression in the book of Daniel is how every other mention or use of that expression should be understood. It doesn't mean one thing here and something altogether different there. There may be an enlargement on what it is, but it's not a change. It's that God is just building your understanding, my understanding, our understanding of what is going to take place in the time of the end. First mention, first use. So here we are again, Daniel 12, verse 11. The daily is removed and abomination making desolate set up is not the first mention or first use of this prediction in Daniel's visions. It's at the end of the book. If we understand this principle, this hermeneutic principle of biblical reading and interpretation, then we're not going to simply start here and say, well, that's what it is. That's what I think it is. That's what we've taken a vote and 20 out of, No, we want to go back to the first mention of the daily. Before reminding you of the first mention of these linked expressions, daily and abomination, making desolate, I'm asking you to see. Now, this is not simply seeing something on the screen or on the board. I'm asking you to see up here. You understand, sometimes to see is to understand, to comprehend, okay? That's what we're talking about. To see with understanding. Why? Because this prophetic issue is of such importance that Jesus, while conversing with his disciples about the end times, quoted Daniel verbatim and said this, "Whoso readeth, let him see in his mind, let him understand." Now here's the first mention or use of the daily being removed and the prophetic consequences of whatever this means in the book of Daniel. I'm in chapter 8, verse 9. We're going to go to verse 11. Then we're going to fill in. Now out of one of them came forth a little horn, which waxed exceeding great toward the south, toward the east, and toward the pleasant land. We made reference to that this morning. Out of one of them came forth a little horn. So you have Daniel 7, and you have the lion, you have the bear, you have the leopard, and then you have the beast. 1, 2, 3, 4 actors on the stage of the end. These three have something in common. They are predators. They are carnivorous. They will eat you alive or dead or something. Now Daniel describes these. He describes what he sees in his vision. And he says, but then there's this fourth beast, which was diverse or different than the other three. These are on the earth and they represent earthly powers. But this one is coming on the earth. And he has 10 horns. If this is a power, and this is a power, and this is a power, what is this guy? He's a multi-powerful creature, entity. And Daniel says he's diverse from all the others. And not only does he say he's diverse or different, if you keep reading in Daniel 7, you will find about verse 11 of Daniel 7 that there's a moment in time when I beheld till the beast was slain, his body destroyed and given to the burning flame. And as concerning the other beasts, they're still alive. Now the lion with eagle's wings is no secret between you and me. You know, I believe, that lion represents the United States of America. Those eagle's wings represent the United States of America. That this is an Anglo-American put together of the United States and Great Britain, where we came from. And we're going to come back together at the end. We've been together since World War II. I mean, big time. But something is going to happen down here on this rock that is going to bring us together again. I think it started with Desert Storm. I mean, in modern terms. Now here's the way this works. Of the three predators, this is the meanest. Right here. A lion, a bear, a leopard. If there's a contest between these, if they meet one another in the woods, in the forest, somewhere, there's no question that the lion's going to have the day. But what's pictured in this vision is that the lion's wings get plucked off and the lion's heart gets pulled out and the lion goes down. And nature hates a vacuum, And so the bear begins to rise. Fighting posture of a bear. When we go down, Mr. Putin says, I ain't afraid of you no more. You're a pansy. Are you listening? Are you listening? What are you waiting for to understand where we are in time? We're already there. We're already there. We're already here. The third beast is China. It was announced just recently that China has surpassed the United States in economic power. One, two, three. But who is this guy? He's unlike these others. He's not a worldly, simply a worldly power. He is an otherworldly power. There is something between here and here that has to take place. There has to be a crisis of immense proportion in order to get these three to come together and agree on anything. I submit to you that that crisis will begin with an economic collapse. It's not far away. Yes, but I thought they're saving themselves over there with all the... They are trying to save themselves. We are still powerful enough to not buy any more Halloween costumes. So they can't just trash us yet, but they can call us what we are, pansies. We're not afraid of you anymore. You're toothless. You're clawless. In reality, we're clueless. We have no idea as a nation who we are and where we're going. If you and I have any concept here today of what we're talking about, if we have any understanding at all here today, we are blessed or cursed, one or the other. Because Americans don't have a clue. They're still betting on the stock market. They're betting on Uncle Sam. They're betting on us. We have always won. No, we don't always win. Vietnam. No, we don't always win. Pakistan. Afghanistan. Iraq. No, we don't always win. Toothless. Powerless. Gutless. Brainless. Tell me what the purpose of Congress is. Tell me what the purpose of Congress is. When the members of Congress are sworn in, whether Senate or House, tell me what the purpose of this gathering is. To do what? Come on. To uphold the Constitution, to protect the citizens, to exercise courage. For whose benefit? Yours and mine. Now what we have is 6 going on 7 years of a totally inept, powerless, toothless, brainless Congress. I'm sorry. I'm an American citizen. I'm a patriotic American citizen. And I see 2 houses of Congress that are supposed to be supporting me and you and the Constitution, and they are gutless. I'm sorry. I'm not supposed to talk politics. I'm not talking politics. I'm talking fact. What we have is a rapidly diminishing in power and oneness as a nation. We are coming apart at every seam. And morality or lack thereof is very much a part of it. We don't know how to spend money and write checks. We don't know how to balance a checkbook. And when we have a president, I don't care who he is. I don't care which party he is. It matters not. When we have a president that says, I know the Constitution says this, but I say that, and the Congress does nothing about it, hey, this party is over. Hey, right, broken. That's where we are. And I think all of you know that. I think you watch enough news to know that. So we're here. And Putin is here. And the Chinese are here. And he is on the way. And he's ugly. He has, listen, he has teeth and nails of iron and brass. Oh, where have I heard that before? In the vision, pardon me, the dream given to King Nebuchadnezzar. You're this head of gold. You're this head of gold. And after you will be a nation that will, be silver. And then comes brass. And then comes iron. And this beast with teeth and nails of iron and brass will stamp the residue. Now, if you understand that this is a continuum, you will follow the residue through, and you will not arrive at, Adventists or the remnant church, and we're the ones no. You're going to discover that the residue that is stamped and put to death by the beast are Moses and Elijah, the two olive trees, the two great prophets that come before the death sentence is pronounced on mankind. You have to have it in the mouth of two witnesses. And here they come. Here they come. We're not far away. I believe they will arrive on the day of, I'm just telling you what I see. I believe they will arrive on the day of Pentecost. I believe they will be empowered with the Spirit of God. And for 1,260 days, 40 and 2 months, 3.5 years, they will preach. And everybody on the planet will watch and hear them speak. Now, how is that possible? How is that possible? 3 messengers flying in the midst of heaven. Radio, TV, internet. Can we reach the jungles? Can we reach the Eskimos? By the way, you see that little tab right there? That's a piece of paper and a tape on it. Do you know why I did that? What? All I got to say is put some clothes on before you go turn the computer on. Because that's a camera. And this new complex in Utah sees, hears, knows. Oh, my. Look, folk, this is Mr. Beast. He's ugly. But this is the first beast. When we meet him again in the book of Revelation, the lion and the bear and the leopard, traditional enemies, are hugging one another. Now, how do you get that to happen? The little horn that pops up here, the little horn that pops up. He deceives the kings of the earth, it says. And he talks peace to all of them. And he says, you need to do this. You need to come together. And let's make another beast like the first one. Except, let's get everybody on the planet involved. Bow down. If you don't, you'll be sorry. And you will. You will. This is verse 9. I'm skipping verse 10. What we want to do is get back to the first mention and first use. Yes, or yea, he, this little horn, magnified himself, italicized, even to, and the margin actually says, or against there, the prince of the host. Now, verse 1 and verse 2 of Daniel 12 tells you who the prince of the host. At that time shall Michael stand up, the great prince that stands for the children of thy people. This little horn is going to stand up against Christ coming in the clouds of heaven. Now, what power does the little horn have? He has the kings of the earth with all of their weapons. Ready, ready, ready. Revelation 16, check it out. And from him, the prince of the host, the daily. We're getting some understanding here. From him, margin, the daily sacrifice supplied was taken away, and the place of the sanctuary was cast down. Now I need to fill you in a bit. You really need to know this. You deserve to know this. It was my senior year. I was taking Daniel and Revelation at last. Several times during the course of the year, I had to ask, why do we teach it this way? It's not what it says. We are making it say something it doesn't say and doesn't mean. I was not the only, I didn't know that there were other Adventist scholars, evangelists, ministers. I did not know that there was a long line of objectors in early Advent history to the way in which we were preaching some of these things. I didn't know that story. I graduated in 1965. Remember 1965. It was 1980. I was out of school from 1965 and 66 because I went on to seminary for a year. I'm out. I'm pastoring. I'm working in various capacities for the, quotes, denomination. And it's 1980. So from 65 to 80, how many years? 15 years have gone by. And a friend sends me 2 cassette tapes of a talk delivered at Loma Linda University at night before a very, shall I say, an august assembly, pardon me. What I really should say, before a very upset assembly. Something had taken place that caused all of these folk to come together for this occasion. And what had happened was Dr. Desmond Ford, Australia but transplanted to the U.S., a serious theologian, had at Pacific Union College given a study, made an address, shared an in-depth study on the judgment, the, quotes, investigative judgment. And Dr. Ford said, this is not sound scripture. Oh, can you imagine fur flying? This is a pillar of the faith. It created so much havoc in the big world of Adventism that the General Conference president summoned Dr. Ford to Washington, D.C. so he could be watched. And let's get him out of that discussion so that things can cool down and die down and we can get on with paying tithe. So Dr. Ford was summoned and brought to Washington, D.C., and he was given a certain amount of time in which he could document his study, his investigation, and his claims. And some incredible things began to happen right there. One thing that happened was someone opened